This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone. Let's take a look at some of the interview questions for cloud and Azure. What is a cloud environment? So a cloud environment, when somebody is asking you or talking about the cloud, so basically the cloud environment is data centers which are hosted in different regions of the world and provided to you as a service. And these cloud environments or the data centers which are provisioned at different parts of the world are maintained by the people who are called the cloud providers. Okay, and the services which are provided by the data centers are your virtual machines, which is your infrastructure as a service, or it could be platforms like a web application or a website. It could be softwares like your WhatsApp, Facebook, Google, Swiggy, anything, whatever you talk about right now, any softwares are mostly all cloud softwares. Your Office 65, SAP, SAS, all these things are your cloud softwares. And it also provides you storage like your Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, Box. All these things come as storage. So basically, the cloud environment, it is a model which is enabled conveniently on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable and computing resources like networks, servers, storage, applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. This cloud model promotes availability. Okay, so it is making your application highly available. That means no matter what happens, your application will not go down because your environment has got redundancy. It is basically having copies of it and all backed up. All these things are there, so that's why it promotes availability. So why we need the cloud? So basically the first reason is on demand. So whenever there is a need for my application to go live, whenever my need for my application to be there, the I'll get the environment for that. I'll get the resources for that. So whenever I need for my application to be come no to be come out of cloud, I don't need it to be there, then I can decrease the demand, or when there is a decrease in demand, my application basically can come out of the cloud without much expense or service provider interaction. Scalability. If tomorrow my customer base is increasing, my cloud can expand, or my application in the cloud can expand itself across multiple virtual machines, and it can support the increasing number of customer base. Tomorrow, if I'm having a sale, a big billion day sale, or some kind of a sale, so my customer base is going to increase and I need my servers to support the high demand. So my cloud environment can scale accordingly using automatic scaling. Okay, and it can manage the customer demands. If the demand is decreasing, if my projects are coming out of out of live and they're going into dev phase and all, so if the demand is decreasing, again my cloud environment can scale down to manage it and save cost for me. Okay, so that's what the scalability is about. Multiple tenants. The cloud environment or the cloud provider who provisions my environment can host multiple tenants or multiple companies or multiple subscriptions in the cloud, right? So the same data center can hold data of multiple organizations together without them getting interchanged, getting handshake, getting talking to each other, right? So it won't intermingle. Your data is safe, your data is secured, your data is not getting accessed by others, even though it is there in the same data center. So that's the multi-tenant ability of the cloud. Self-service computation and storage. So self-service computation, what does it mean? So basically all the computations which is happening with your environment, increase, decrease in size, adding of resources, removal of resources, the money which is getting, the estimation which is put through, everything is automated. No one is sitting back there who is deciding that this much will give the money and this much will get the resources and all. Nothing is being done by manually. Everything is self-service and everything is computed. Storage resource. Cloud gives us abundant storage resource so that my content can be stored in the cloud for as long as I need it, as much as I need it, and with a proper price to pay. Reliability. Cloud or the cloud vendors, they have got approvals, they have got certifications from different certifying bodies like your HIPAA, GDPR, and ISO standardization. Everything is in place so that you can rely on them with your data. The data, whatever you are put hosting in the cloud, you can be assured that it is not going to be used for any purpose other than which for which it is being stored. It is not going to be kept there, or it is not going to be retained there unless there is a need for it. Okay, so that's where the reliability comes into picture. Utility based subscription. You do not have to pay ahead of your need. There is no capital expenditure here. When I'm building my own data center, say for example, in the back old days, so I need to pay up ahead of my usage to build and set up the infrastructure. And then once the infrastructure is set up, then only my projects will run and I'll be able to get the money out of it. But in case of cloud, once the project goes live or the project is hosted in the cloud, then only I need to pay for it. Otherwise, I don't have to pay for the environment. That's a utility based subscription. As much as I use, as much as I need to pay. Okay, so some of the other capabilities of cloud is fault tolerance. So if there is a down, if my server has crashed, then because of high availability, because of redundancy, because of what do you call it, having different servers hosting the same application, still my application will be sustained. It will not go down, or users will not face any issues. They will still be able to access my application. Disaster recovery. If the entire data center is lost due to a natural calamity or terrorist attack or some kind of a event, the entire data center is lost, still backup of my data will be available across multiple data centers across different regions or zones, so that easily I can fail over to the other database and my application will still keep on running and will get sustained. Global reach. With the cloud being having its data centers across the world, I do not have to worry about reaching globally. I just need to place my content in a cloud environment and it will be available across the entire world, whoever has got access to the internet and has got the right permission to access the data. Okay, I don't have to deploy my servers in different regions of the world to make my service available. It will be done by default by the cloud. Okay, so predictive cost considerations are one of the major features of cloud, where the cloud can predict your cost going forward. Like if in the year of 2018 I have spent see this much amount of money in cloud, then based on my usage and consumption, the next year I will be, or I can estimate, or cloud can estimate that my consumption or my expenditure will be so much. Okay, so predictive cost considerations is there. Security. The data centers which are provided by which are managed by the cloud providers are considered to be more secured than the data centers managed by individual organizations. Okay, so security is a very concern here of the data center, of the data, of the facility, so that data breach does not happen. So this are some of the reasons why we needed the cloud. What are the categories of services provided in the cloud? So there are three major categories or major distinctions by which the services are provided in the cloud. The first one is infrastructure as a service. What does this mean? So whenever somebody tells you about infrastructure as a service, they are basically talking about virtual machines or servers, right? When somebody says like I need a server, they're basically talking about a virtual machine. Server is an old concept where you get an entire server for yourself, but with virtual machine, with virtualization placed on top of a server, you get a virtual machine, a part of the server, which you can use for your own purpose. So the infrastructure or the virtual machine which is given to you, you are responsible for managing and maintaining it. Upgrading, patching, all these activities will be done by you. You will have the full owning rights of the server. You can install whatever applications you want on it, and the infrastructure or the virtual machine will be fully managed by you. When it comes to platform as a service, so there basically you will get the platform to host your application in. The platform will have a server or a VM in the background, a virtual machine in the background, but you will not have access to it. That will be managed and maintained by the cloud provider. You will have access to a folder or a container or the web service in which you will be deploying your application or you will be hosting your application, and that service or that your website will be consumed by your customers. That's a platform you get as a service where you don't have to maintain a data center or a infrastructure in the background. The third one is software as a service, where basically you will be using a software, let it be WhatsApp, let it be Facebook, let it be Telegram, Instagram, whatever you use right now. So it's all a software which you're using as a service. You are not installing it in your devices. What you're installing is just a client. When you upload a photo into Instagram, it doesn't get stored in your device. It gets uploaded to the cloud environment from where it is being consumed by everyone. Right, everyone, when they access your Instagram profile, they're not seeing the photo from your device, they're seeing it from your cloud account. Right, so software as a service basically gives you the capability to maintain, manage, and use a software which is available for everyone, but it's not getting installed and stored in your own device. What is a web role and a worker role when it comes to cloud? So a web role or a web server basically is a virtual machine which is configured to play as a web server. Basically, it can host a website which people can access and consume it. Okay, so it's a pre-configured as a web server and will automatically have your application loaded on it by the time the server fully spins up. This will create a public endpoint, IP, like a URL or IP address for your application, and it could be an API or something similar like a service also. And worker role is basically they run along with your web roles and are responsible for performing computing functions to support your application. The web role will accept the user input and queue it up with the worker role to process at a later time. This allows the web role to be more responsive and to fire and forget tasks to be processed later. Okay, your services, your extensions, your agents which run in the VM are more like your worker roles. What are resource groups? So a resource group is basically a folder. You can think of it like a logical folder present in Azure, which contains your resources required for a service to be deployed in Azure. If, say, for example, I am creating a virtual machine in Azure, then for the virtual machine to run efficiently, while creating the virtual machine to run the virtual machine, I will need a virtual network, I'll need a firewall, I'll need a NIC card, I'll need a disks or the storage account or disks and all. Right, so all these things will be deployed into the same resource group so that I can easily manage the entire infrastructure together. Okay, so it's basically a folder inside which you're putting your content so that you can easily move, manage, delete, restore. You can easily manage the resource groups together. What is a virtual machine? So a virtual machine, like I talked about, it is a server on top of which virtualization has been done, and a part of the server is given to you as a machine. You can remotely take the machine and you can work on it. You can install whatever softwares you want on it. You can configure whatever services you want on it. You can make it according to your need. So here you can see the simple architecture of the virtual machine. You can see the resource group. You can see a virtual network. You can see a subnet here. You can see the public IP address, and my virtual machines rests here, and the operating system disk or a D drive or a E drive, everything is mapped to a different storage account. I have got a temp drive which is managed to a physical storage device for the paging file, and I've also got a diagnostic storage account for my diagnostic logs. Okay, so this is a virtual machines architecture. Like I said, what is the purpose of Temp Drive in virtual machine? The Temp Drive is used for paging in Azure. Basically, I'm going to specify that this portion of my hard disk, let it be 1 GB, 2 GB or more, I am keeping it for my machine to be used like a RAM. So the processor will take the paging file and consider that part or that space in my hard disk as a RAM. So it is a temporary drive and we should not use it for storage. This is what Microsoft says. Okay, it's a temporary drive. If your machine is getting stopped, deallocated, or it is getting uh, you know uh, redeployed and all, you may lose whatever you have kept in the temp drive. Do not store anything in the temp drive. How does Azure charge for using virtual machines? Azure charges virtual machines based on hours. If my virtual machine is running for an hour, I'll be charged with some pounds or some dollars. If my virtual machine is running for less than an hour, I will be charged based on the minutes it has been running. Right, it will calculate from the hourly and it will be charging me for the minutes, whatever virtual minutes I'm running. Based on that, it will be charging me. It doesn't charge me if my virtual machine is not running. If it is just configured, it is deallocated, I will not be charged for the VMs. Okay, so some scenarios where virtual machines are preferred. So a development environment where I need to install multiple softwares. No, I need to get my IDE, I need to install a web service, I need to install some other service, right? When I need to install multiple softwares in an environment, that time I will definitely need a virtual machines. If I'm going to have my application within the cloud and I need to have more control over the environment, I will go with a virtual machine. If I need to extend my data center is already in on-premise, and if I want to extend it to the cloud, I want to have more machines or servers in the cloud, that time I will go with virtual machines. So these are the three major scenarios in which you will go for virtual machines. What are the different types of disks which are used by virtual machines? The hard disks, basically. So you have got the operating system disk, the C drive, that is. You have got the temp disk, or which is used for the paging file or the page file. And you can have data disk like D drive, E drive, and depending on your need. So three kinds of disks we have in the virtual machines: the operating system disk, the temporary disk, and the data disk. What type of virtual disks, or how are the virtual disks stored in Azure, and what type of storage is recommended for virtual hard disk? So there are four kinds of types of storage which is recommended for virtual hard disk. The simple one is your standard hard disk, which you will not get that much of IOPS and all, but it is pretty cheap. You can use a standard hard disk when you're not running a critical application. You can use them. Go for a standard solid state disk when it is little more complicated and your application needs a little bit of higher IOPS than your standard hard disks. If you're running a production application, it is highly recommended that you go for premium solid state disk because it has got more backup guarantees. It has got more what do you call that? The IOPS are more, and it has got a very less chance of getting crashed. Okay, so go for a premium solid state disk for your production workloads. Ultra premium disks are coming in, so they have more IOPS and more power compared to the premium solid state disk, mostly for big data configurations and big data applications. It is recommended to go for ultra premium disks. Name some roles and features which are not supported in the Azure VM. So Azure VM, once I have it, I can install whatever I want on it. It's an infrastructure given to me as a service, but you cannot have your VM do few of the things. You cannot make it a DHCP server or a dynamic host configuration protocol server. A DHCP server is responsible for assigning IP address to machines which get connected to your network on the fly. That is, dynamically IP addresses get assigned to your machines, and once the person logs off, the IP address is taken back and given to some other machines. That kind of configuration is not possible in a Azure VM. You cannot have a hypervisor. I cannot create a Azure virtual machine and on top of that I'll put a hypervisor and create more virtual machines out of it. Okay, so a hypervisor role is not supported in Azure virtual machines, but it is supported in high level virtual machines like your EV3 and DV3 series of VMs. BitLocker drive encryption. You cannot encrypt the drive on which the operating system is loaded. Okay, so apart from that, on other data disks, you can have the BitLocker drive encryption. Network load balancing. Your Azure virtual machine cannot be configured as a network load balancer. If you have a need of a load balancer, go for the Azure load balancer. Your Azure load balancer is again a virtual machine appliance, or it's a just an appliance with a load balancing capability. It does have a virtual machine in the background to which you will not have access to, but it will take care of your load balancing. So if you have a VM and you want to make it a load balancer, it is not possible with a Azure virtual machine. Wireless LAN service, you cannot have that with Azure Virtual Machine also. What are managed disks and unmanaged disks in Azure, and which is recommended by Microsoft? When you're going to create a virtual machine, you need to have your data stored in a storage account. And the disks which you are creating, your C drive, D drive, E drive, and everything, all the disks will be actually stored in the storage account. When you go for unmanaged disk, you need to create the storage account. When you create the virtual machine, the data disks, the C drive and the D drive and E drive will be stored in the storage account. Okay, and as .vhd files in the storage account, you will be having a blob storage. In the blob storage, you will have a container, and inside the container will be mostly a vhd container. Inside the container, you will have your .vhd files or virtual hard disks files, which are stored, and you are responsible for maintaining and managing these files. You are responsible for replication, you are responsible for backup, everything about the disk you are responsible for. Okay, that comes with unmanaged disks. When you go with managed disk, which is recommended by Microsoft, then you don't have to create a storage account. Microsoft will be creating a storage account in the background, which you will not have access to, and Microsoft will be managing the disks. Microsoft will take care of replication, backup, data recovery, and everything for the disk. You don't have to worry about that. The managed disks, which are, like I said, recommended by Microsoft, they give high fault tolerance, they give more IOPS, they give more capability to you, and less of a stress to manage your disks. Okay, so we recommend always to go for managed disks. Okay, how do you save cost on unmanaged disks, or what is the trim command used for? So there is a command called trim which you can run on a disk so that you're letting Azure know that to charge you only for the space which is occupied. Whatever, say for example, I have created a disk of 1 TB space, but I am keeping only 100 MB of data in it. Then using the trim command, I'm telling Azure to charge me only for the 100 MB, and whatever sectors are left which are unallocated can be used by others. Okay, so Azure can use it for its own purpose. Whenever I need the sectors back, Azure will provide it to me. Okay, so using the trim command, I can let Azure know to charge me only for the space which I am occupied. What is the difference between stopped and deallocated in case of virtual machines? A stopped virtual machine will still incur charges for you. How? The charges which are incurred when you just stop the virtual machine will be more related to your virtual network, your firewall, your IP, your NIC card, whatever configuration is present with your virtual machines. You will still be charged for that, because if your virtual machine is stopped. If you have deallocated a virtual machine, that means you have gone into the virtual machine in Azure portal and you have clicked on deallocate rather than stop. Or if you have gone into the portal and you have clicked on stop, then your virtual machine will get deallocated. If you have stopped the virtual machine from inside the virtual machine, you have gone into Windows and shut down, that means your virtual machine is just stopped. If you go into the portal and click on stop, your virtual machine will get deallocated. When your virtual machine is deallocated, you will not be paying for any of the resources which your virtual machine is holding. Your virtual machine is deallocated, it will not be holding any resources, but the logical resources, whatever it is holding, okay, it's all, you will not be charged for them. You will not be paying for the IP address, you will not be paying for the VM, for the virtual network, for the storage, nothing. Okay. So storage, again, like if your data is stored in the storage account, you will be paying for it because storage is charged separately. What is a data center? So like I said earlier, so a data center is basically an infrastructure. Okay, so it's a building in which you have got network, the physical network, you have got the physical storage devices, your SAN is there, you have got the physical servers there. On top of the storage, you have built the servers and all, you have got people to manage the entire facility, you have got all the uh, facility management in place to maintain and manage your data center. This data center will be used to create and provide servers as a service to the customers of the cloud vendor. Right. So infrastructure as a service, or that infrastructure is basically your data center. Okay. Your physical, we are talking about your physical network, your physical servers, your physical storage. Right. So this all comprises of your data center. What are the various subscriptions and subscription architectures available in Azure? So when it comes to subscription, the very basic one is the free subscription. When you create an account in Azure, a free trial account in Azure, you'll be asked for your credit card. You'll be validated your credit card by paying a minimal amount of money, which will be again refunded back to your card. What you'll be getting, you will be getting a full no, lifetime, some free services for your lifetime. You'll be getting some services which will be valid only for 1 year, and you will be getting 13,300 rupees, or this money will be valid for 30 days in your Azure account, and you will be able to spend this money in Azure by creating resources in Azure. If you're creating a VM, if you're creating a web service, if you're creating a website, if you're creating a storage account and all, this money will be used to create your resources. Once your 30 days is over, what will happen? Microsoft will still not charge you for your credit card. Microsoft will basically ask you to upgrade your subscription to a pay as you go subscription, or Microsoft will start deleting your resources or deallocating your resources. Okay. And remember here, there is no recycle bin in Azure. Once your resource is deleted, it is gone, unless it is a storage account and there is a soft delete option enabled. Okay, so the next subscription is MSDN, or the Visual Studio subscription. If you have got a Visual Studio subscription, you will have access to Azure and you will have $200 of credit, monthly credit in your account from Azure. Okay, this you can use to build your artifacts in Azure, build your services, build your infrastructure and everything in Azure, but it should not exceed the amount. And every month, this $150 or $200 will be getting re-added to your account. Okay, it will not increase, it will always be the same. Okay, so third one is the enterprise subscription. When you have an enterprise agreement with Microsoft, like between Microsoft and your organization, so basically you are getting an enterprise subscription. In an enterprise subscription, you will not have a subscription for your company, you will more have a subscription to a lower level, like maybe for your department. So every department of your company will have their own subscription. Whenever any resource or any project is getting created or built for their department, it will be built in their subscription, so that their cost center can be charged and you can pay, or basically they can pay directly for their resources which are being created in Azure. Okay, so easily the cost can be managed. The third or the fourth one is the pay as you go subscription, where basically you will be paying as you go in the Azure path or in the Azure timeline. So as your resources will be increasing or your resources will be decreasing, accordingly you will be paying the money to Azure. It is more of a like OPEX model or operational expenditure model. The more you use it, the more you're going to pay, or you'll be paying based on your usage. Thank you.